Welcome to an ETS15 one-to-one interview. My name is Christine Richards, and I'm with Zpryme, and we're thrilled to have Ernie with Verizon with us today. So thanks for joining us, Ernie.
You bet. Glad to be here. Thanks for asking.
So what brings Verizon to a energy and utility conference?
So Verizon has actually been involved with the energy and utility space for some time. It really goes back to the convergence of technologies required to support grid modernization. So when you think about it, you have to have information technology, operating technology, and advanced communication technology. The convergence of those three things creates an opportunity for Verizon to participate in helping to fulfill grid modernization.
Okay. Now, what are you seeing? You said you had worked in the utility industry for a long time. I mean,
I did.
What have been your experiences being in the utility industry and then, coming over to a communications company?
Sure. So I did work for a utility for 27 years, and I worked on both the business side and the IT side, which is unique. Bringing that experience into Verizon has allowed me to look at the interplay between these two capabilities, and really it's about how the business of the utility can be enabled by technologies like the type that Verizon brings to the table. So we're really focused on helping the utilities operate differently and more efficiently. And what I see in the utility space is a movement. Historically, they were pretty much focused on owning all the infrastructure.
Yeah.
And that's a model that's been in place for over 100 years, literally. And initially, there was not a lot of what I'll call the strategic partnership between Verizon and the utilities. It was pretty much at a commodity level. Over the last 4 or 5 years, what I've seen are utilities that are now recognizing that to continue that model is very expensive. And to continue to own and build that infrastructure to support grid modernization is an investment that they're not sure is in the best interest of their ratepayers and their customers. And so now we're entering into discussions around hybrid networks. Verizon also owns quite a bit of assets in terms of cloud computing and in terms of IP. Internet protocol-based networks. So being able to bring that whole portfolio to the conversation has allowed the utilities to see Verizon differently and to see how they can help create an architecture that is still owned and operated by them where it needs to be, and partners with people like ourselves where it makes good financial sense for them.
Now, how about distributed energy resources? So, the consumer, commercial and industrial customers. I mean, how do you start to tie all those different pieces together?
Right. That's actually a really good question. What we're seeing there is there's actually a couple of problems that the utilities have with those, right? One is, in general, in aggregate, when you're dealing with alternate and renewable resources, they have to find a way to predict how much is going to be integrated into their grid. And that, if they don't get that right, it creates instability, right, within the grid. Yet these resources are based upon sun and wind, which are not that predictable. Secondly, now we see a lot of domestic rooftop solar, right, that is continuing to grow. And the customer wants to sell back excess energy to the utility. They don't really have good, effective ways in which to take all the net energy metering connection points that are out there and really understand how much is affecting their grid at any one point in time. When you look at advanced communications, this is another good example. You take the intelligence needed to operate those end devices, you connect it with advanced communication that's not just one way, but it's actually two-way, so you can actually control the device. And now you can actually create a business model that makes sense for the utility.
Now, I mean, we're just talking about energy right now, but you were just on a panel around the Internet of Things and smart cities. So, I mean, when that starts to enter the picture, all these different industries, how does that change the picture for communications?
Well, actually, for communications, it broadens the opportunity because in every one of those cases, though it may not have an energy contribution, it will always have a communication contribution of some sort. We were just in a discussion, and one of the predictions is that the third world countries will accelerate past us in terms of putting in place smart cities as a norm. And I do tend to agree with that prediction. I think many third world countries leapfrog over legacy technologies, and they're able to put those things in place because there's no history in terms of having it. We're coming out of our legacy world and out of how we used to run things. On the other hand, we will see cities based upon cost pressures based upon carbon footprint demands, alternative energy resources, public safety, looking to bring all that together so that they will infuse intelligence in how they run their city. And in some cases, the utility as a municipal will be part of it initially. In other cases, the utility might be an investor-owned utility. They'll still be involved indirectly. So we see that as another area where Verizon, as a communications leader, can play a very strong role to help craft out that architecture.
So what advice do you have for utilities as, I mean, they're working with distributed energy resources, the Internet of Things, smart cities. I mean, what should they be doing to, get the most out of it and be actively involved?
Well, again, coming from a utility for so long, I know that the decision-making process can be somewhat lengthy for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
And that's really okay. My advice to them is really initially be thoughtful about what changes you want in your business operations that will be enabled by technology. Because if you don't have that, if you just chase technology first, you run the risk of wasting a lot of money and losing a lot of time. Once you have that business direction in place, it becomes easier, not necessarily easy, but certainly easier to connect to the appropriate technologies to help you get where you're actually trying to go, which is to deliver better service more efficiently in a cost-competitive manner for your end consumer.
Sounds like good advice. Thanks for joining us, Ernie.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.